All right, we got the little red sticker in the top left corner. It says we're going live. I tried to do a little music there, experiment a little bit, and didn't go live. Hold on. So, everybody, we got a surprise tonight. I see some of y'all in chat. I appreciate you being here. Such short notice. Got a guy. His name's Donnie Miller. He's waiting backstage, and this will be. I appreciate him coming on because this is one of the top 3 scariest Bigfoot stories you'll ever hear. And he doesn't do this much because it takes a lot for him to relive this. And I'm going to bring Donnie in and in just a second. And y'all just hang on. This is amazing. Mr. Donnie.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today? Tonight?
I'm kicking. I'm a little tired, but I'm kicking.
Man, look, I was so excited. I thought about doing a channel, and Mike, I got started with Mike, and we still talk every day, and I may be on his show, he might be on my show. But one of the first things, because we're new at it, we were new, and he said, "You gotta check Donnie Miller out." I said, "Okay." And I turned it on, and man, I'm telling you, I went and got my wife. I said, "You have to watch this." And one reason I really wanted you to come on, we talked about it before. There's people that they say they want to see one of these things. I was lucky enough or unlucky enough that mine was, about 180 yards away, and I wasn't afraid for my life. But there's other people that have not been so lucky, and which you're one of them. And I think we need to. We're documenting these stories for everybody for the future, and telling where we're from and all that. And I believe it's really important. And for everybody, y'all, I'm gonna probably look at the chat while Donnie tells his story. He's got a YouTube channel, Standing Goats Rescue. If you could go over there, he's standing in the middle of about 50 goats right now.
Yeah, yeah. But I got one that's irritating me, and I got the babies running around.
So if y'all see him move a little bit, they're probably butting him. But so anyway, you've had a lot of stuff happen over the years, and you had told me you didn't grow up thinking about Bigfoot or exposed to television shows and TVs about the subject.
I never heard of it. And my introduction to him was having one walk up on me, and I knew nothing about him, and we weren't into the TV, and we didn't have time for it. My family are fishermen by trade and farmers, the ones that are still up in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, that area. They're still farming, and the part of the family that my father, my grandparents, just the entire family tree, they moved down to the coast and started fishing. And to this day, they still have a lot of fishing boats, and it's commercial boats, long line boats, and tuna boats. And so I never had the opportunity to hear about Patty or any of it. And when that one walked up on me that night, I had an extremely clear look at him. He was just probably 30 inches from me. I could reach out and touch him with a bent elbow. He was right there on top of me. And the first thing I thought of was a caveman. And that's what without a doubt, it was a caveman. And that's what my mind was set on. And it was a while before I found out what it was.
And being a hunter, I've been a hunter, and I've known a lot of hunters. And when you tell a story, you try to paint the picture and put people there with you. And I think you do a good job of that as anybody I've heard. Do you want to for everybody? You want to start with how it began that evening and walk us through the encounter?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just turn it over to you, and you can go take your time if you have to. I mean, we're here to listen. So
in my that encounter, that was my that one wrecked me. altered my life 180 degrees, and it took a lot away from me. Um, that year, we were working farms, and part of what I did was exterminate and remove wild hogs that were destroying farmers' crops. And we had a couple of contracts for some beef farmers, cattle farmers, because the pigs that come in, they'll root the fields up, and all it takes is one cow to step in it and snap an ankle, and they're out of whatever they've got invested in that animal. It's a big, big liability. So we would go in there and exterminate the pigs. The particular field we was working was in Marianna, Florida. It was off Highway 73, which it's a very short road between Highway 90 and Highway 231. It comes off of 90, it runs sort of northwest, and it dead ends at 231. About halfway down that road on the east side of the road was the fields that we were working. And we got several traps. We had tripod stands, lock-on stands, climbing stands. We trapped them, we hunted them. We would go out at night. We had a gun and light at night permit, and we had to open it when we got there, and then we closed it out when we leave with the Fish and Game Commission. And so we were legal to do it. And we would remove several hundred pigs off these, each farm a year. And some of them were even, close to 1,000 animals a year.
Wow.
And one of the traps that it hadn't been checked in, I think it was the third day, and it had to be checked. 3 days is all they could go. With the amount of water that we put in the traps, we got a half of a 50-gallon barrel, and it's got a couple of pieces of angle iron welded on the bottom so that it stays upright, so
Right.
they don't roll it. And that's their drinking water. And then they got a bunch of feed. We got a feeder that continuously dumps feed into the, dumps it once a day into the trap. And all the guys, there were, I think there were 7 of us that were working full time, and there were 2 others that would come out, not all the time, maybe once every 5 trips that we all went out there, they would show up. And I could not find anyone to go out there with me. I had to check the trap, and it was getting kind of late. It was somewhere around 9 or 9:30 that night, and I called a friend of mine, and I asked her. I said, "Look, would you mind riding with me up to Marianna to check the trap? I've got to check it. I'm only going to check the one, but I have to." She didn't want to go at first, and I told her, you can stay in the car. It was pretty hot out.
Yeah.
It was around April, and so I told her, you stay in the car. You can drive. And the first peanut field, there's a clay road that goes around it. It kind of circles it, and it's probably, I think it was like 21 acres, 24 acres, a small egg-shaped field. We're coming off the highway. You come into this end, you drive around it, and then right up here is a 2 trail that runs through a real thick area, about 100 yards, and then it's the big field. And right across the big field, there's a point that comes out, and it's just a few hundred yards from the end of that 2 trail to that point. And just inside the point, it's real thick right there, but that's where the trap is. And so we pulled up, went around that first field, and I was driving. I had a Toyota Tercel, a 94 Tercel. And so I pulled up, and I just got the front end just inside that trail, that 2 trail. And then I got out and I walked. I had to walk down, and it's probably 100 yards long. Right at the opposite end, the far end of it, 10 or 15 feet before you hit the next peanut field, there's a little stream that crosses it. It's just a couple of feet wide, a few inches deep, but it flows year round. And so it's eroded that 2 trail to where it's about a 2.5 foot step across it.
Right.
And it drops down. And, the stream's only from the ground level to the bottom of the water is probably 1.5 foot. You can walk through it, but usually we just step over it. And I was walking, I got out of the car, and I had a Remington 7400, which is an automatic 7mm short magnum. And I got my headlamp on my ball cap, and I got it aimed down. It hits the ground about 6 feet in front of me. The copperheads and moccasins were bad out in that area, especially the copperheads. There's never a time you go through the fields and you don't see a couple of them. They're
Right.
just, they're out in them peanuts really bad. And so you keep your headlight down where you can see them while you're walking, because anything coming, if a pig's coming at you, you'll hear him. And you just tilt your head back enough to raise your light and you can shoot him. Or, you know, if he's coming at you. And they normally don't. Unless
Right.
they got young and you walk up on them. If they're bedded down and you get too close, mama will, she'll absolutely come at you. But down that trail, I didn't get far from the car. I'm guessing 30 yards maybe in front of the car. And the car's running the whole time. She had the lights off, but the car's running, the air conditioner's on, and she's just sitting in there listening to music. As I'm walking down the trail, I can hear footsteps off to my left side, which is, I believe that would be northwest, but I could hear what sounded like somebody walking. And I stopped, and it stopped, but it would take one step extra, and then it would stop. And there wasn't any sounds other than the footsteps. And I start walking again, it would start walking. And it had me a little creeped out. There were bears on the property. I didn't see any, but we seen bear tracks. We seen the scat, you know, just the normal signs. When I got down to the end of the property, or I'm sorry, the end of that two trail where that little stream is, I stepped right beside it. And as soon as I was in the process of stepping over it, I heard a sound, and my foot landed on the leaves. There's just tons of sweet gum, and they have a leaf similar to a maple.
Mm-hmm.
They may get that big, but they dry and fall off, and they're really loud. And my foot crunched when I heard the sound. And in my mind, I knew what I thought I heard. But the only thing out there that would make a sound even close to that is a pig. And I figured that was a mama pig. And she did that long drawn out, that, you know, to call her babies. And they'll fall in line. She'll take off, and babies are right there with her. And that's in my mind. That's what I was thinking. I didn't see anything. So I went ahead and got to the edge of the field right there. It was only a few feet past the creek. And I looked down that direction, down the edge of the peanut field, because you have about a 15-foot opening from the tree line toward the peanuts where the tractor circles the field and where he turns. And I waited for a pig to come out, and I had the rifle up, safety's off, I'm ready to rock and roll. If this pig comes out, I'm going to knock her down. Nothing came out. It was very silent, very quiet. There was no smell. There was nothing. Well, I went ahead and turned. I figured it turned and went further back because there's springs back in there. And there's a couple of caves. They're not big. You can get in them. The biggest one, you'd have to bend over pretty good to just about at a 90-degree angle at the waist to go into it. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how far it goes back. It goes way, way back in there. But I went ahead and I crossed that field, got to the trap, and the trap was empty. And that trap, I don't know how many pigs we've taken out of it, but it is a very, very successful trap. And it was very rare to come to that trap and not have pigs in it. And it's been several weeks coming in there. Everything's tore up. The ground's tore up. Pigs have been in it, but there's no pigs in it. And the gate would be closed where the trigger was tripped, but there's no pigs. And on that trap,
And there's no way out, right, for the pigs at all.
nope, there's no way out because the gate's spring loaded. So when
Right.
it'll open and let more in, but as soon as they get out of it, it'll close shut like this. And there's no seam, there's no way for them to get out unless they climb over. But that one had a retainer, which is we build them out of cattle panels, and it's just a strip, a 16-inch strip, which is 2 blocks on your cattle panel, and it goes all the way around the trap and it hangs over because they will go over it. But with that strip there, they can't. They'll run up and hit that, and it'll knock them down. Well, When I got over there, no pigs in it, I headed back. It was just the in and out thing. When I got back into that 2 trail, I stepped over that little creek, that little stream right there, and I heard the sound again. This time, my foot was already planted, and the only sound that was in the atmosphere was what I was hearing, and it was a growl, and there was no mistake. It sounded demonic, and if you've ever heard two big wild boars fight, and they'll stand on their back legs and they'll just cut each other with their tusks, they'll stand up and fight, and they have a very demonic. It's a roar, very demonic sound. It's really loud, but it's not intense to where you feel it.
Yeah.
You just hear it. It's loud. And you go toward it and you can walk right up on them when they're fighting. They have no idea what's going on. But
and Donnie, just for people in the chat, with hunters that are out around, or in farmers and hunters and people that are around animals, sometimes you can tell when something's bigger or smaller by that volume of sound. And you know what it takes to make that, right? So it's not, you just have to be out there to learn it. It's just something you learn by experience.
With the pigs, a 80-pound pig, knee high at the back, he sounds like he's 400 pounds. They got a very deep grunt to them. If they do that grumble, it's like a growl, a pig growl.
Right.
It's very drawn out, but a long one is going to last 3 seconds maybe. Right. And that's a very long drawn out, that grumble. And this thing, it growled in probably 12 to 15 seconds. It was just a continuous, and it felt like I could feel it. Right. Like it was coming through the ground. Like I could feel the reverberation from it. It was strange. I've never heard anything like that. And that had me on edge. And so I took my other foot, because I was straddled the creek, and I brought my other foot over, and I started moving real slow and easy. And he starts the stepping. As I'm taking a step, there's a step echoing, and it's on my right side. It was on my left going in. It's on my right now. He didn't come out. He stayed in that block on that side of that 2-trail. I take a few steps, and then this smell hit me. And the one thing I've never encountered in the woods up at that point was a bear. And I'm terrified of them. Right. I have got an overwhelming fear of bears. And it's to the point, if a bear came up, they'll come up, from people that I know, other hunters, they'll come up, stick their nose in your blind. They'll climb up to your tree stand. And normally when they realize what you are, they'll leave. But I have such a fear of him. If he sticks his nose in the blind, he's only going to draw back a part of it, because I'm going to let him have it. I'm that afraid of him. And I don't like taking the life of any animal.
Right.
And it's illegal to shoot him, but I'm that afraid. I'd rather go to jail.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking. My brother-in-law, he's a forester, and he deals with them on a regular basis. And I asked him, I said, well, how do you know? Because during the time I was talking to him, one of the properties that we took on for the pig removal had a bear problem. And I was scared to work the property, but we had to. And so I asked my brother-in-law, I said, how do you know it's a bear? And he said, the smell is horrendous. It's awful. It's sour smelling. And it'll just about burn your nose. It's really strong. And so that was in my mind.
I imagine in the South where you're at, with that humidity and everything, I bet they would get pretty sour.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. With all the swamps, we're just so loaded with swamps. And, well, immediately that's where my mind went to. It's a bear. He growled at me, and I'm sure bears growl. They got to. And he stinks. So there's two things that my brain is saying it's a bear. And, well, now, as I'm headed to the car, this guy is paralleling me. And it sounded as though he was 30 feet from me. He was close. He was behind me. I was ahead of him a little bit. And when I realized, this guy's going the same way I'm going. I've got 90 yards to the car, and he's behind me, and they're fast. You're not going to outrun a bear.
Right.
And so what I did, I stepped across the 2 trail on the opposite side of where he was at, and I was trying to keep my feet in the sand, the tire track, where the tractor goes across that to get to the different fields. And I tried to stay in the sand so I wouldn't step on any of the sweet gum leaves or any twigs. I didn't want to draw attention to him and have him come over to see what's making the crunching sound. I didn't want him to come check me out.
Right.
He started growling and snarling. He would growl, and it sounded like he was exhaling, growling, and then on the inhale, he would have this snarl. And it almost sounded like a growl, but you could tell he was inhaling because he had sounded like he smoked 10 packs of cigarettes a day. It was very gurgly sounding, like severe congestion. Well, as I'm walking, I got this horrid odor coming into my nose. I got his footfall beside me, and in my mind, I knew it was bipedal. There's no mistaking 2 feet from 4. When you're in a dried forest, there's no mistaking it.
Right.
And I knew what I was hearing. But I've never been around a bear. So does a bear place his front and back foot down at the same time when he walks? If he does, it's going to sound bipedal. But there's no animals that do that I'm aware of. Well, I'm walking as smooth as I can. I'm trying to be fluid to where there's no noise, nothing's going to jingle on me. I turned the safety off on my rifle, and it's all I got to do is point and pull. Well, I'm listening to the crunch, and it's getting louder, and that's when it dawned on me, whatever this is, as I'm walking, I'm making a straight line. This thing is coming at me. You could tell he's coming toward me.
Right.
And when he got straight beside me, I knew he was going to step out right on top of me or in front of me. And I was so scared. My stomach started hurting. My eyes were watering, and I'm petrified of bears. And that's what is going through my mind. This bear is fixing to step out, and I'm going to have to call the game wardens and explain to them why I just killed a bear. It's illegal. I'm going to go to jail, but so be it. I'll go. I'm not going to take a chance of an animal that powerful getting on me. And well, he stepped out. There's a wall of scuppernongs and wild grapes, and it goes from the ground all the way up to the top of these big oaks and hickory trees and sweet gums. It's just a solid wall. You couldn't throw a rock through it. It's so thick. And he stepped through it. And when he did, I stopped because I knew he was on the trail with me now, and he was behind me. But the way it sounded when he come through it, it sounded like he was 20 feet or so back. And I froze. I was trying to hold my breath. I didn't want him to hear me breathe. I was so afraid he was going to hear my heart beating. And I had that much fear going in me.
Yeah.
And the only sound that was emanating was this growling and snarling sound. And he stunk. It was rancid. It literally smelled like something decaying. It was awful. But then there's a thudding starts, and I could hear it, and it sounded like someone taking a pillowcase with a couple of shovels of sand in it and dropping it on the ground. It was this nonstop thud, boom, boom. But I'm feeling it every time that thud happened. I was feeling it through the ground. And I don't know if I was imagining it or if I was really feeling it, but every time it happened, I could feel that shake. And I thought, my God, I'm going to turn around. There's going to be a bear. He's going to be just about chest high. It's going to be probably Florida's biggest bear ever come through the state. And I'm fixing to put a hole in it. And so I got my headlamps on, and it's aiming down about 6 feet in front of me. And I stick my finger into the trigger well. Safety's off, and I got my hand on the fore end, and I've got to turn to see what he is. If he's right here on me, if he's going away, if he's facing me, or if he's moving, I'm shooting. And that was my intention. I'm going to fire him up. Well, I due to my neck injury, I can't turn to see straight beside me. I have to twist at the waist. I could turn a little bit, but I've got limitations. Back then, my limitations were more than what they are now. I'm a little looser now than what I was, but I can't turn far. Well, I tried to turn. I twisted to see behind me, and I couldn't turn enough. And so I tried to keep my body still, and my feet were facing, they're side by side facing toward the car. So I'd move one foot and then the other one, and I kept doing this little baby slides until I had waist down, was facing beside me into the woods on my left side. And then I twisted to where I could see him, and I couldn't see anything. And it was just black. Everything was dark. I had my headlamp on. I should have seen the road, and I couldn't see the road. And the moon was out. This was at night. And the way this two trail is, the trees are really big on both sides of it. The moon was off my left side, but it was it wasn't overhead. It was further away. So when I come into the two trail, it was black. But the peanuts, you could see all the way across the field. It's lime green peanuts. The whole field's just lime green with them. And where I was at, I could see the car. I could see her. She's sitting in the driver's seat. I could see her head where she's in there, listening to music. And I could see she's silhouetted against the lime green peanuts that's behind the car.
Right.
I can't see the peanuts that are right here. And the car is 60 yards from me. The peanuts behind me are roughly 40 yards. And I can't see them at all. And my heart started pounding, and I thought I was blacking out. My vision went, and I'm expected to hit the ground. And I was that afraid that I thought I was blacking out. And my stomach, I just started getting sick to my stomach at the point of, I thought I was going to throw up. I was that afraid of this bear. And he growled again. And when he did, I realized it wasn't coming from 20 feet that way. It was coming from that way. And I leaned back so I could, because at that time, I couldn't hardly look up at all. And I'm right there is about all I got. I got to kind of lean back to do it. And when I leaned back, that headlamp, I don't know if you can see it, hit him high in his right side, right there on that shoulder. But it lit him up. His whole body was lit up. And I didn't know what I was looking at. The first thing that came to my mind was caveman. And everything we were taught in school, the drawings we were shown, that's what I'm looking at. And it wasn't an ape, wasn't a gorilla. This wasn't a guy in a suit. This thing was big. It was really, really big. And the top of my head wasn't far. If I could have seen his belly button, my mouth would have probably been even with his belly button. Wow. He was so much taller than I am and just broad, dense. But he was looking down at me, and he had his mouth kind of open, and he was so mad. I don't know what I done, but he was fired up mad. And he had his fists balled up. He had his elbows against his side, and he would throw his fists down toward the ground, and he would stomp his foot, and the whole ground would shake. And that was that thudding that I was feeling, was him stomping. But he was so close to me, whenever he would throw his fist, I could feel it. At that time, I had somewhat of a beard, about 1 inch long, but I could feel it blowing the hair on my face, my neck. There was so much wind. His hands were enormous, but the wind come off of him. He was inches from me.
He was close, right?
Yep. And I had the muzzle of that 7mm short Magnum. If I'd have pulled the trigger, I would have hit him pretty close to where the light was hitting him in his right shoulder. I would have got him somewhere up in that upper chest right there. And there was no way I would have shot him. There was way too much standing there. And I know that bullet would have got into him, but I don't think it would have done anything but made him mad. He would have had a splinter from it.
Yeah.
There was so much mass that the size of him was absolutely, it was frightening. And there was no way possible this was a man. There's not a man on this planet with those proportions. And he looked weird. I wasn't looking at an oversized human, but there was so many human properties to this thing. But his eyes were, he had really large eyes, and the pupils were, if you look in the mirror at the, like the white of our eyes against the pupil, the size difference between the white and the color, he had more of the color. I could see the white, but it was on the sides, just like at the corners. It was all pupil. It was huge.
So there was a little bit of white, but mostly black, or from what
it was
you could
mostly
see?
Black. It looked black. There were times where it kind of looked like a copper tint, but it was hard to tell. It may have been from my headlamp, but it seemed like there was some copper color in the colored part. But
so you looked this thing. So that at this point, you were looking him in the face or up at him.
Oh yeah, I was staring in his eyes. It was hard. It was hard not to. He was looking straight into my eyes.
How tall do you think he was, approximately?
He was, I don't know. I'd say 9 feet, maybe.
Donnie, I say this all the time, and you know, when you try to explain the one thing you can't explain to people, you can tell them the color and they can picture that. You can tell them the height and they can picture that. But the size and the mass altogether, they just can't fathom how big they are.
Yes, if you haven't seen one, I don't think you can. I don't think you can understand it. And you know, one of the things when Carrie and Mark came up and they were filming, wanted me to tell that story, and I was explaining to them, a memory came back that I had forgotten about all these years. And I remember it wasn't fur to where he's just covered in hair. You could see the skin through it. It was pretty thick on his forearms, and like right there, just past his elbow, it was pretty thick there. But you could still see his skin. But I remember on his stomach and chest area, seeing the pores, the actual pores in his skin, and it reminded me of a battleship. Those big rivets that they drive into the metal. That's the first thing that it reminded me of when I remembered it, and I'm pretty sure that's what I was thinking the night it happened. And when that memory came back, that's immediately what I went to, comparing it to a sheet of steel with them big heavy rivets.
Just
the pores were sunk in. They were as probably as large as one of the child's them real fat pencils they give children in first grade, the learning pencils. It looked the diameter of the lead in one of those pencils. They were really huge pores, and they were dirty. There was black in the pores, but it reminded me of steel with them big rivets in it.
Right.
But how immense he was, you can't explain it. But it's, you know, he's flesh. There's no doubt. I could see his chest moving when he was growling and making all the noises. He's spitting all over me, and every time he'd growl out, his breath would hit me, and it smelled like rotted oranges. I don't know if you heard the rock hit over here. It smelled like rotted oranges and like earthworms. It was a lot of different odors, but like fermented orange. If you ever had oranges go bad, you can still smell the orange. But
you'll walk in the kitchen, you're like, they've got a distinct smell.
Yeah, that's the way his breath smelled. Right. It was really strong.
Y'all, Donnie has activity on his property. He's standing in the middle of a bunch of goats. I imagine so they could tell him if anything comes up.
Yeah, I'm maybe 15 feet from the back door. So
if he takes off running, the show's over. he's actually had stuff happen close by. So
yeah, it's normally most of the activity that we had is rocks, and usually I was on a couple of shows with Carrie, and at the time we didn't have internet, so I had to do it through my cell phone, and the signal here is it's horrible. We got a bad signal, and so I have to get on the roof right here, and let me see if I can pull it up, and I'll actually show you the signal. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. I got all your, I don't know if you could tell. Can you see out the signal over here right next
Yeah.
to the Wi-Fi
Yeah.
thing? I'm outside and I got 2 bars.
Yeah.
And inside there's no signal. And so I have to come out here. And right now where I got the tablet at is it's a box house for the goats. And it's a little past my waist high. And I got it on a small tripod. But I would get up on top of this. And then I had a 50-gallon barrel I put up just under the roof edge. And I'd stand on top of that barrel and I could put my arms up on the roof and I'd put my phone right there and I could get 3 bars. And that's how I was doing the shows. But we had rocks. They were bouncing and rolling all past I think it was 2 times that we done it. But the rocks have happened in the daytime. I'd be out here and they'll start hitting the ground. And a lot of them you could find. And I thought they were concrete, but they're not. They're, I don't know what they are. It kind of looks like sandstone.
What's the biggest one you've ever found that you thought might have been thrown or placed by?
Thrown, probably about like that.
Okay.
Pretty big, the size of a small apple.
Reason I ask, me and my son, I don't know if you've seen some of my story, but me and my son had a rock about the size of double fist, and it was tossed at us. And when it's all happening, it scares you. And when you get to talking about it later, my son said, I think if it was trying to hurt us, it would have threw it harder. I think it was at that time that one was trying to warn us, but that's not a good feeling because if something tosses a rock at you, it has to have thumbs. It's either
that's happened a lot out here. I don't know how many times, but it's been many dozen times. We'd be out here in the daytime with the goats, and normally they'll hit the roof, but they'll bounce off. And we had rocks all over the roof. And what's so strange, just about 4 or 5 days ago, I'm thinking my stepson came over, and he's young. He's 21, and he was able to climb up on the roof. And he got up there and he said, there's rocks all over the place and there's some bones over here. There was 2 jaw bones on the front of the house.
Wow.
And they look like deer, but if it's a deer, it's a young deer. It's not goats. None of our goats have ever went missing. And the ones that don't survive their issues, we do bury them.
Right.
And we use a tractor. They're not something you can just dig up.
I got a question. So when you were standing there looking at this guy, did your friend in the car, did she see anything?
She's seen him. What happened? I get sidetracked.
You're good. I do the same thing. I do the same thing. You're good here. I promise you.
when I realized what I was looking at wasn't a bear, I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was not a bear. This guy had almost human features. A flat face, a nose like us, a little wider. And it's sort of, I hear a lot of people saying that they look like African Americans or Africans. And that's not when I seen him, it sort of looked like the Aborigines from Australia.
Yeah.
How their nose is, theirs is wide, but it's a little up. You can kind of see in the nostrils just a little bit. And that's sort of the way this guy looked, like Aboriginal in a way. But I ended up, when I knew I wasn't going to shoot him. I mean, he would have got me. There's no way I could have got away. And so I turned back. I put my back to him, and I started taking real small heel to toe steps. And I was shaking. My legs kept trying to give out on me. I could hear my heart. I could literally hear my own heart in my ears. It was beating so hard. My chest was hurting. I thought it was it. I wasn't going to make it. Either he was going to get me or a heart attack was going to get me. And I'm trying to get to the car, and it was about 60 yards, and I knew I can't run physically. If my life's on the line, I just can't run. It's
right.
All there is to it. I broke my back 3 times, broke my neck once. I was born with bad hips, and I've got a lot of issues, and I can't run. And I knew walking fast just wasn't an option. This guy was too big. and I did not see him walking. So I don't know how wide his stride is, but I'm sure at his height, probably 6 feet if he were to like speed walk. And I didn't know how to get her attention. You know, she's in the car. I could see her. I could see her silhouette, and I could see the peanuts. So she stood out like a sore thumb in the car. You know, she was moving. But even if she wasn't, the headrests were so low on the seats in that car, you can't see their headrests, but I could see her head, and that's, you know, it was real obvious. And I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to do anything to set this thing off because he was already mad. He was really, really mad. And the only thing I knew to do was the headlamp. You know, it was still aiming down, and it was a cheap Walmart headlamp. And the way it's set up, each click of the button on it would change modes. And it would go high, medium, low, red light, green light, off, and then high, medium, low. So if you were on the high button, you wanted to turn it off real quick, you had to click it like 6 times to get it to go to the off. And so I grabbed it and I turned it toward the car, and I just started clicking the button as fast as I could, going through all the modes, the different light colors. I kept flicking it. And finally the headlights came on, and he's still behind me, still growling, still stomping. And then the high beams came on, and the windows were up, the car was running. It was real quiet. You couldn't hear it unless you was up on it. But she started screaming in the car and telling me to, using the F word, you know, F and run. Right. I could hear her. It was like she was 10 feet in front of me. And then when she started blowing the horn, that's when he took off. And he came from my right. And when he took off, he continued the direction he was going. And it sounded like he was taking trees that big and just snapping them. It was so loud. And he took off running. I got to the car and I opened the door. And normally I'd open the back door and I'd stick my rifle in there, take my fanny pack. It's got a snake bite kit, just some essentials. Right. Paracord, your knife, the stuff you use when you're working with pigs. Normally I just open the back door, put everything in the back seat, and I get up front and I leave. Well, I climbed in the front seat, loaded rifle, safety still off, my finger's still in the trigger well, and I didn't care if I shot a hole through the car. Oh well, just get me out of here.
Put another one in it.
But when I was getting closer to the car, my mind started telling me it was a bear, and I was just seeing him wrong. But I knew the light, he was so lit up, it was so bright on him, and there wasn't no way I could have mistaken him.
Right.
He was less than 3 feet from me, and this headlamp was pretty bright.
What color was he? Did you say?
He looked hair? Two-tone. He was dark like a black, but it had like a red tint. And remembering it now, it seems like there was like gray. Like he wasn't gray, but he was black. But if you see some of these ladies get their hair done, and they'll have the little gray individual strands, it sort of had that look to it. But in the headlamp, it looked black, but everything that was out, so like around the top of his head, it looked like it had a red tint. The way the light was hitting him, and he was dark. But it's remembering it now. I remembered him as being black, and then I remembered seeing the red. And last year, before Carrie left, I was talking to Carrie on the phone, and I said, I'm remembering more and more small details, but what's weird is now I'm remembering seeing like some gray in his hair, or silver, or I don't know what color it was, but it was light.
Well, I heard a guy talk one time about when we see something like that we're not supposed to or not used to, and you're when you look at something, people say, oh, the first thing I noticed. That's not really what happens. You notice everything at the same time, so some of it kind of gets jumbled up in it, and it will. I've had things come back. I've had things come back where like, Oh, I forgot about that. Maybe something small, but
Yeah,
it's part of the story, you know. But yeah, so
yeah.
what did if you take off running, I'm gonna run too.
I think that was a rock.
um,
All the
if
goats are on this side, but normally they would the rocks would come from that way. That's north.
yeah,
Um, the rocks would normally come from north, but you could hear them. You hear them come through the leaves. And um, two of the shows I was with Carrie on, you could hear them coming through the leaves before they hit the roof.
yeah.
Um,
Ugh,
but I haven't heard anything go through the leaves. I heard twice
something
now
that way.
something's hit over here on the south side of me.
I heard something sound like it hit some tin earlier in the
Yeah,
night.
it. I heard it hit the ground and then it bounced up and hit the shed,
Okay,
and that was the tin sound. My light's not working right.
well, if you have to go, you do take care of yourself. I know you will.
Yeah,
We'll understand.
they don't. They haven't come up in the yard. They have, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
We did see Kim and I both seen them on the north side when we had the horse up there. And there's a big oak tree, and he would stand behind that oak, and you get eye shine. Their eyes shine just like a deer.
What color do y'all see there?
It looks like it's chrome.
Hmm.
It's like a silver. It looks like chrome, almost like a
Wow.
mirror. You know, little small mirrors, but you can see them blink. You'll see the head moving, and we've seen it several times. But that's always been on the north side of us.
I'm
And
curious. I keep. I'm sorry. When your friend saw what she saw, what was her description like?
yeah, well, when I opened the door, because my before I got to the car, my brain is going into this. You know, it was a bear, but I
Right.
was seeing him wrong. But there's no way I could have seen him wrong. He was right there, and I
Right
had the
there.
light on him. There's no way. I mean, I was looking in up into his nostrils. I could see the hair in his nose, and
Oh, that's too close.
I could see the roof of his mouth. He had his mouth open just a little bit. It wasn't.
Yeah.
He didn't have it gaping, but he did have his teeth separated. I could see the roof of his mouth. I seen his tongue, just part of it. But I was looking up. He was lit up. He had a flat face, and it wasn't. You know, most people, unless you're Native American or you've got some other type of Indian in you, or African American, most people had their faces are kind of rounded, like everything kind of pushes forward from the nose and the cheeks. Everything's kind of rounded. If you were to cut a slice out of your head this way, you know, it's kind of rounded in the front like that, almost like a point. And his was almost flat. It was really wide and it just seemed flat, but very square jaw. He had a very dominant, like a Native American jaw on him, very, very dominant. And it just, what he looked so frightening. His mouth, you could tell it was, if that were a human, his mouth wouldn't have been as big as his was. This dude's mouth was big. I mean, it was bigger than what a human the same size would have. It was
Right.
really wide, and just his lips looked like leather. He looked like he was built to destroy stuff. You know,
Right.
I don't think there's anything on this planet outside of, you know, our creator that could do battle with something like that. I don't know how you'd stop him.
Well, Donnie Flat Rock has had some experience stuff around his house. He's got a question. He said, "Did his hair have a shine to it when your light hit it?"
Some of it did, but it was really dirty, especially right in front of me. It look if I don't know an animal to compare it to. The hair that was up on his head and up around his shoulders and his neck looked like the hair from a pig. It had a shine to it. It wasn't as shiny as a pig. It looked clean, but the rest of him, it looked very dry, like a
Mhm.
flat color. Um, I don't know if he is in the mud or well, he wasn't muddy, but maybe the dust from the fields out there. I don't know, but I imagine if it had rained on him and dried, it was probably all shiny. but it wasn't the same length. The hair was different lengths all over him. And it seemed the longest hair was around right here, like on his, like he had a beard, like a human would grow. He had pretty long hair all right here. And then on his arms, the hair was real long on the arms, just the lower part, like just above the, I got my camera all wrong. I'm sorry. You know, where your elbow is right here, like probably from right here down, you know, just up the, above your elbow, a couple of inches from there down. It was really long, but it was sparse. Like he had mange.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that bad, but
Right.
you could see skin, even through the real long stuff. You could see the skin real easy.
But there were spots that were open, and then there were spots that were hairy, and it just naturally.
It was patchy, and
it's amazing. Hey,
I don't know if it was a skin disorder or what it was.
We got a new bunch of new people in here, and anybody that watches this later, could y'all please subscribe? I'm new. I'm trying to get this built up, and I appreciate it.
We got. I'm sure there's a lot of our family over here as well, and
I see some.
Roger's been with us for a long time. For you guys that don't know, he is a part of our family, so please support him. It doesn't cost anything.
I appreciate it. It's amazing. You were one of the first people that I watched their videos. Scared me. I'm like, I think I asked you a long time ago, like, if I started a show, would you, you know?
You
and
did.
I had no plans, you know, at the time. And then
I'm gonna my flashlight went out on me. We use it for the goats. This may get bright. I'm gonna turn this light. I'm gonna put it up top. Maybe.
Hey, you're good. And I know you're tired. Anytime you want to leave, just let me know. You won't hurt my feelings. Y'all, Donnie works hard.
I'm good. I'm standing, so I'll be good. I'm trying to hang this. I've got a lot of noise on this other side of me.
Yeah.
This ain't helping anyway. Well, it ain't lighting anything up. I'm sorry.
Hey, Rita, Nancy, Billy, Jennifer, I see all y'all. But here's the thing. I'm not seasoned enough yet to pay. I get enthralled with the guests, and Donnie's for sure. And I forget to give a shout out to y'all in the chat. I appreciate y'all so much. You don't know. It makes it, the stories.
That's your backbone.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, Donnie, I love watching shows, and I love the lives, so I can get in chat and interact with everybody and ask questions, because I'm doing this to learn. And
we all are.
And I see David in here. I mean, and there's some of them that I've missed, but y'all, I appreciate you. I do, and I appreciate Donnie bringing y'all in.
Thank you. I'm glad you invited me. I'm honored for that. Thank you. Yeah. Would you mind if I just something I wanted to mention, what I talked to you before the show about?
Yeah.
And because through the past, I haven't had any happen in a while, but through the past, I've had a lot of people emailed me with some pretty nasty emails because I go in the woods armed. I'm trying to get my light right. I'm sorry. I think that'll be a little better. But I'd get pretty much chewed out because I go into the forest and I've got a firearm on me. And it'll be that way until the Lord brings me home. I'm not going unarmed. And one of our brothers, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't have permission from him, but I just spoke to him last night, and he has activity at his house. And he was explaining to me what he went through. And he's gotten to where they don't mess with him, but he'll go out and sort of talk to him, lay the rules down. You know, you're okay here. Don't mess with my family. Don't mess with my stuff. But, you know, you're fine. If there's problems, it's going to get real bad. And I'll see to it that, you know, that doesn't happen. But he's had a good, this ongoing, like a collaboration with him of sorts. But he said it was one of the alpha males, one of the big ones, had come up, and it was pretty close to him, and it was moving toward him, and he's used to them. But when you're in the presence of these things, gets scary. I don't care how many you see, it gets scary. And well, his first reaction, it scared him, and so he pulled his firearm. He did not point it at the being. He pulled it, had it in his hand,
Right.
and he said the Sasquatch gave him a real, like a very disappointed look. It got to him,
Yeah.
and turned and walked off. But he said through his mind, he received this feeling of disgust, like a
Right.
telepathy, that this thing was disgusted with him. And he said, I beat myself for doing that. I should have never done that to him. And I told him, I said, I've been cursed out. I've had some pretty nasty emails from people because I carry a firearm with me when I'm out there. And I explained it to him. I said, look at it like this. As a hunter, and all of our hunters here will understand this for sure. You're sitting in your tree stand. You're there to get meat for your family. You're hunting deer, elk, whatever it may be. You're hunting these larger game animals. As you're sitting in your stand, you get a legal deer come. Like for me, it'd be whitetail deer. I get a 5-point or a 6-point come in, but I know that it's a mature deer, but he's not a full grown. He hasn't lived. He hasn't really spread his genes. He may have 2.5 years of life from the time he was born. That's not the deer I want. And I'll let him go. I'll let him walk. There's been days where I've had an 8-point. He's got a little small rack, little small deer, and I just don't have the heart to shoot him. I'll let him walk. I'm there for meat.
Right.
But I let him go. I let him go. And then want to come in, and I know this is the one. This is the one I'm going to harvest, and I'll take the shot. And I explained to my brother, I said, look, what if this thing's coming in, how we size them up when they come in? Do we shoot him? No, he's too, the horns are too small. His body's too small. He looks too young, or, he's still with his mother. We have reasons why we let these game animals walk when we're there to harvest them, but we let them walk. What if these Sasquatch are coming up? They're approaching your house. They're looking in your windows. They're walking up when you're out back. What if they're coming up looking at you and say, oh, I'm going to let him go. He's not the right one. One of these days, if that's the case, one of these days, you're going to be the right one for them. If that's their way of thinking. We don't know how they think. But what if that is the case?
And you're
yes,
right.
You need to be armed.
And I remember posting a picture in a group. My son and I did what we called a walkabout. We had some experiences, and that day I told him, I said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be loud. We're not going to be quiet. We're not going to slip up on anything by accident. But we carried our firearms, and the reason we did is because being a hunter in whatever part of the country that you're in, there are little critters that will bite you and give you disease.
Yeah. And lots of predators.
And the predator. Oh, yes, absolutely. So I've been in some scary situations other than the Bigfoot. And so, and it's just like Mike, just like you had your gun there. Both of you could have shot the one in front of you, but you didn't. And I do think this is true. We don't know. We everything's speculation. We're learning. Everybody's learning. This is why we talk. But when me and my son, I think, made one mad, and it was huffing and blowing and picking up rocks, big boulders, and throwing it. And we had one howl over to the left, and we've got that on audio. I've had it. It howled 4 times. We've had it analyzed, and the people that analyzed it said it falls in the range of Sasquatch. We're in a mess. But what I did, I told him to clear his mind. He set his rifle down. I didn't tell him to. And I said, we're not here to hurt you. We're here to learn. And we don't want to be hurt either. And when I did that, the whole change of the wood, the whole field changed. That the feel of the wood. He felt it. My son felt it. Because I asked him, I said, what are you feeling now? He said, man, everything changed. We heard one more small tree snap, like a sapling. It was loud.
Wow.
And everything quieted down. So maybe we were in its home. and it
Oh
was
yeah.
it was mad about it. And not like you said though, you never know, because if your goats right there, you can raise them from babies, and maybe have this one goat that has kids, and one day she might try to attack you because she's a mama, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
never
Without
know.
doubt.
You never know.
Yeah, that's a
So
baby waiting to be fed. If you guys are hearing, I'm sorry about it. He's at the back
that's,
door.
hey, we're hit an hour. You want to do this again sometime?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate you. I appreciate you. Anything you need, give me a holler.
And you
I
as
know.
well. Thank you, Roger.
Hey, it was last minute. You brought a bunch of people in, and I definitely want to hear about some of your newer stuff. I love watching you read your stories uh, on your show and stuff.
I've got
And,
some. I got to get out there, but I've been going every day of the week, and the average has been about 11 hours a day. And I get home. I haven't been home long, and was it about 6:30?
yeah,
30 minutes before startup, and
yeah,
which we talked yesterday, and I told him I'll let you know when I get back today. And
yeah.
I try to get done early, but it just didn't work.
Well, you're good. Hey, this is some of the best times here. It's spontaneous. It's not planned, and I
That's
just
right.
I enjoy the way you tell your stories. You're a hunter, and when hunters tell their stories, we try to put the person that's here in the chat that don't get to do things. We try to put you there with us, whether it's talking about a deer hunt or whatever. And most hunters are good hearted anyway. They're not just out there to kill. Just
I don't I don't know if you guys are hearing that that mumbo jumbo language, that talking that you hear that makes no sense.
yeah. Are you hearing some?
There it goes right there. I have to wait till the cars pass. We're right on the highway, you guys. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's fairly loud, but it's right there. We don't get much activity on that side. We've
Yeah.
had it. Um, it's been a few years, but
Thank you, Francesca and
that
Blue
may have
Eye
been the direction the rocks were coming from.
Samurai
We got
Cherry.
more on the roof again.
Well, I tell you what, I've got I've got some shows planned out, but I don't want to get pinned down to a certain night or whatever. Anytime when you get to some free time, and we can sit and talk about whatever you want to. And because I like the I kind of like to think about it sitting out on the back porch with friends, you know,
Yep, absolutely.
and I
Out of the campfire.
yeah, and everybody. There's a great group of people. It's Sawdust. Let me type it out. I don't know if Jennifer can. It's
This beast.
Sawdust Beast. Uh, Mark is the one that actually went over my video,
Oh wow.
and he took the sound out, and he did me a huge favor, because when I heard the volume of air come out of the nostrils and the huff growl at the same time, I said some ugly words.
Oh yeah.
And I wasn't proud of him. And he removed. I still have the original, but I said, "Can you please take that out?" And he did. They're great guys too.
Yeah,
Um,
I get mad when I get scared, and I've
me
been
too.
really. I, I think the reason you won't hear me cussing when I get scared. I get angry. I try to get out, but for me personally, what makes me feel better, because I'm there alone. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
And what makes me feel better is I'll talk to the camera as though I'm talking to like you. You're right there with me, and that's the way I try to get my mind going. You know,
Right.
we're doing this live, even though it's
Right.
not. It's a recording, but in my mind, I through the years now when I do it, it literally feels like I'm on a live show, and I've got
Right.
all my brothers and sisters from Standing Ghost Rescue right there with me, and it does help, but it just I don't think I will ever get over the fear. It scares me bad, and
Well,
just
when I'm on,
that right there is I'm I'm not freaked out, but I'm nervous about it. I'm trying to listen and listen to you at the same time, but it's we've never had nothing happen. We haven't seen them come in the yard, but we did get tracks before on the north side. I've had my
Wow.
lights broke several times. We had handprints by the bathroom window, but we haven't actually seen them in the yard.
Well, Carrie's show, now I never got to watch him when he was around, and I heard what happened, and I hate that. I think you were the first episode I watched. It was he the first time that you ever talked to anybody about this, like
No,
public?
when I came out, um, I had a channel, I had the YouTube channel for the goats, and everyone I tried to talk to, there's always like a stigma attached to it.
Right,
What were you smoking? I want some, that type thing. And
right,
it just got to the point where I was getting pretty angry. These are
right.
people I care about tremendously. And I was getting mad at them. And I knew that wasn't right. It's how do if someone would have told me they encountered one of these things before I ever seen one, I probably would have done the same. I mean,
Hmm.
it's
My
hard to believe something like that
right.
exists. And
And my dad laughed at me, and until something happened to them, and then he come back asking questions later. But
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I
but it was Lynn Smith from Bigfoot Case Files. I talked to her, and God bless her, she's such an amazing woman. And she said, I have a friend that I believe can help you. If you'd like, I'd give him your number. I said, yeah, please. And he called, and we talked about an hour. And he asked me, he said, would you want to share it? I said, I do want to get it off of me. I've been toting this. I've tried to
yeah,
share it. People don't want to hear it. And that was Wes Skirmer from Sasquatch Chronicles. And
maybe that's the one I watched.
I
And
shared it with him.
you had
And
to take your time. It was struggle. It was a struggle, right?
there's times, there's certain times, and I don't know what causes it. I'm remembering it the same way, but there's times where it gets hard.
Yeah,
It's like it feels like I'm back there and I'm going through it again,
right.
and you feel eyes on the back of your head, and it gets really hard, and you want to go quiet. For me, I want to go quiet because it feels like someone's watching me, and they're going to come up on me if they hear me. They're going to know where I'm at, and that's sort of my psyche is doing that to me. And it's not the case. I'll be inside my house, the safety of my home, and trying to retell the story, and it's like sometimes it just brings me back, and it's weird. um, I've worked really hard trying to forget it, and just when you think you forgot it, something will happen, and it'll just flood in all at once, and then it's all at the table again. And not sharing it, but I'll be
I
out
know.
working at the property, and I'll hear that bang on the tree, and I'll stop for a second. I know what it is, but then in my mind,
Right.
it was a limb. It fell and it landed on another limb or a
Yeah.
tree that was down. And I'll start to blow it off, and then it'll happen again, then in succession, and then like everything floods back. And I get my stuff together, I go to the truck, and I leave. And
I bet you don't bring oranges in the house either, do you?
now that it's smelling it now. We've had some go bad on us a couple of years ago, and it did not. It didn't bring any of that back,
Yeah.
and it seems like it would.
But that's a good description, though. That's exactly how people. It's like the one when people ask me the color. I'm like, well, I kept saying brown, light brown, and then it hit me. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I need to like put it with something they know. And the closest thing I could come up with would be like a milk chocolate Hershey's bar, the actual bar, not the wrapper.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And so that kind of gives them an idea. And so when you just say the smell of the oranges, the fermented oranges, we all know what that smells like. And
yeah.
that's these
That was
details
the
that are,
main odor that I was
yeah,
smelling was fermented oranges. And
right.
then it had like when you open a bucket of earthworms to go fishing, that smell, like that was mixed in with it. That was pretty loud that time. I don't know what that was. My light is not working now.
Well, hey, let's end this.
Dead.
And I know this was all quick. Just get in the house and be safe. I appreciate you. I know the people
Oh, thank you.
appreciate you. and let's do this again. And
Yeah,
we met.
absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I
Yeah,
absolutely,
you're
I'm
absolutely.
extremely
I'm honored to have you on, sir.
me as well. Thank you.
We might find a third person and just have a round table discussion one night. Just for fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun, and I've got a lot of stuff that I don't know that I've learned it, but stuff that's happened, and it's increased my knowledge as
All right.
far as things that happen. And this year it's been getting pretty weird. Some pretty strange stuff has been happening,
Yeah.
and one of the biggest things, and I'm really convinced of it now. And I was kind of leaning there for a while. I wasn't so sure, and it's been said to me, and I didn't know if I was on board with it, but I am now 100%. And that's, I believe that once you have an encounter with one, there's something that happens, and it's like that's the go button for it to keep happening from that point forward.
I think you're right. It was 35 years between experiences for me,
Wow.
but when it started back at two locations, I was more educated,
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
and it's helped, but there's so much to learn, and like I said, I've been blessed not to have an experience as bad as yours or Mike Bluler's or some of these other people that um I hope I don't. And my son wants to see one, but he does. I know he don't want an experience like that. Nobody
Yeah.
does, but
No, just be careful what you ask for
that's right.
with these. And it I wouldn't mind seeing them if it was I was on one mountainside, in a vehicle on a highway, an open
Right.
highway, and they were across the valley on another one. That
Right.
wouldn't bother me. But when they're close, when you start seeing the details,
Yeah.
that's when it saturates into you. This is a living being. This isn't a guy in a suit. This is
Or
the real deal. And
just the size alone, you knew he could pick you up and snap you in half.
oh, easy, easy.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, one of the memories when I would dream about that encounter, the memories of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
He had a fist just like we have,
Mm-hmm.
but his fingers were they were almost like a soda can. They were so big, and I
Wow.
thought, man, my mind, if he grabs you,
You're done.
it wouldn't be nothing for him to just literally pop you. And it's crazy to see hands that big and to see how quick, and he's just standing there, but how quick he was swinging them big arms and them hands. It was like lightning. He just swing them down. And imagine if he is swinging a punch at you. You'd
Right.
never see it coming. And it's just, you don't realize the power, what's invested in that body,
Right.
until you get up close enough to see the details.
And mine, like I said, I was lucky enough to be about 180 yards away, but we went up and measured and guesstimated about 7.5 foot for mine. I'm thinking now what I've learned, he may have been a young male because he was really athletic looking.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and but the size is, I keep going back to that. That's something you can't replicate. You can put a suit on somebody all day long and you can do the camera, but when you're somewhere and the first time you ever saw an elephant, or the first time you ever saw a giraffe, or the first time you ever saw something
Oh
that
yeah.
was, bigger we saw bison out in Wyoming, whole lot bigger than I thought they were. I mean, their
Yeah.
head's this wide, right?
Yeah, they're
Or even that wide, and I can't even put it in the camera. And it's just just in awe, this powerful beast right here. And you're in the car and knowing that they could probably take a door off if they
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to.
Well, look at all the reports people have sent in about these things picking up bison.
Oh my
Pick him up,
God.
have him under his arm, and run off with him.
Oh
And
my God. I
them
don't even want to think about that.
bison get up, what, 2,300 pounds, and they're carrying him under one arm.
Yeah, I
struggle
hope they're calves, but yeah.
Yeah,
Woo.
I don't want to see nothing like that.
No, me neither.
It's very easy to imagine. And, that's one of the things that has stuck with me all these years when I started hearing other encounters and people are describing uh, these muscles. You can see each muscle, and I've seen several since that encounter. I've seen a bunch of them, and they're very muscular, but I've never seen that striation. And looking back on the encounter in Mariana, that's the one that just took everything from me.
Yeah.
I was right there on him. He wasn't fat. This dude was he was built, but his skin just, I bet it was that thick. I mean, it just appeared so thick.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I couldn't see the muscle. You could see that how big his chest was, the arms, and he had these big, giant, just enormous shoulders, but it was the same length coming, the same width going down. Just his whole arm was massive, and that much tissue with this real heavy, not leather,
Right.
but it's almost like his skin was a heavy grade, like a car tire, like that type of rubber stretched over it. And that's sort of how it looked. And just seeing the pores in his skin, I knew that bullet wasn't going to do nothing to him.
Well, like you said, you saw, if you're seeing how deep the pores are, you've got a good idea how thick his skin may be. And I never thought about that. We know an elephant skin is pretty daggone thick.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And we're learning. We don't know what we're going to learn about these things, but from encounters like this, everybody that hears your story, they're learning because, and like with Mike's story, reason I contacted him, I was listening to a podcast, didn't know him, and I had some things that happened. I'm like, how in the world can they just snap a green sapling like that over a hardwood, and the roots not even be disturbed? Nothing bent over, it just snapped, high pressure.
Oh,
When
yeah.
I heard him say how big the fingers were and how big the forearms were, I thought, I need to contact this guy.
Yeah.
Because it made sense then.
Oh,
And
yeah. Without a doubt.
He said, Roger, you don't understand. His fingers were as big as bananas. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, when Mike has shared with me what happened to him, it was so strange because everything he was describing, it's almost like I already knew.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I know he's telling the truth
Yeah.
because I witnessed that stuff, and I don't wish that on anybody.
No.
No. I don't know. These people claim to have had really good encounters with him, and I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case. For me, it hadn't.
And that's what we need to understand. Everybody in the chat, everybody that'll watch this, somebody might be scared of snakes because they had a bad. I'm scared of horses. I'm not getting on one because the very first one I got on tried to kill me.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
I know people, they're pretty, they're beautiful animals, but I'm not getting on another one, and I don't want to be close to one. That doesn't mean I hate them, but that's my experience. I've got friends that go and stay for weeks and ride horses. It's the experience. It's your personal experience that kind of guides you. I mean, some people have an open mind, but you're still scared.
Oh, right? Yeah. They scare me out. Anytime activity happens, it scares me. I don't want to be around it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating if I capture something on video and then watching it later. But while I'm there, I'm scared. It's scary. And if they're predators, like any other predator, what a trigger an attack. And it's notorious in dogs. Dog attacks on children. A dog will come barking at a child, and what does the child do?
They're
scared, they run.
Right.
When they run, it triggers the animal's natural instinct as a predator. And you won't get it out of a predator because that's how God designed them. I don't care what you do, it'll never be removed from them. And
you can take a bass, for instance, a fish. You can trigger a response, even if that bass is not hungry. with a right lure at the right time,
That's
present,
right.
at the right time, they do it, and they're not even wanting it. It's just that natural reaction.
Yep, that
So
predatory instinct. Yeah.
when we had the rock thrown at us, it come through some cedars and landed. We didn't see what threw it, but I immediately knew it had to have thumbs, whatever it was.
That's right.
And what we ended up doing, we faced that way and backed down slowly. I said, don't make any sudden movements. And we backed down slowly till we got 30,
Oh
40
yeah.
yards away. And then we turned and we didn't run. We walked calmly back to
You
the
know,
truck.
I've had several sticks thrown at me. I've actually I captured it before on video. I didn't know I had a stick thrown. I didn't hear it. I didn't see it,
I
but
think I saw that.
someone seen it in the
Yeah.
video. I don't remember who had seen it, but then I started getting flooded with emails. Other
Yeah.
people seen it too, and I had to go back and watch it. And it kind of blew my mind. But when I get stuff landing near me, I remember there's a story, and I don't remember where I heard it. It was on YouTube, but I don't remember the channel. And I think it was Canada, these guys witnessed. They come out, their trucks parked on the road, and there's a small ditch on each side of the road. These guys I don't know if they're hunting. I don't remember the story, what they were doing. But there's a bunch of quail walking down the road, a covey of quail. They're on that road where this guy's vehicle is parked, but they're down. They're further away from the vehicle, and they see something large and black in the ditch, like it's laying down in the ditch. These birds are up on this road. They're the whole covey is walking down the road,
Right.
and they see an arm. This arm comes up and whoom, and it slings super fast. And what they were explaining was that the Sasquatch had a handful of gravel. It laid in the ditch. When the birds got close, he slung it, and he killed almost all of them, wiped out most of that covey. Then he went up there and picked up all these birds that he hit, the stones, and he ended up leaving. But that's what every time I hear stuff landing near me, I go back to that. If they're able to hit a quail with a rock, they could absolutely hit us, and they haven't.
Right. It's I believe with the experience we've had, it's a warning, because
I think so too.
We went back a year later, and we went around behind that. I've told this before, but I was expecting it to be really thick, and it opened up in these wide open woods and a bowl. And you see the ridges up there. And I told Peyton, I said, if we'd have walked 15 to 20 more yards, whatever was back there couldn't have got away without us seeing it. I believe it was saying, "Hey, this is close enough," and it worked. We backed off.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And it's, I had the activity, all of it scares me, but what gets me the most is when something happens and I'm going to the truck. I want to leave. And headed to the truck, I start getting sounds of stuff happening in front of me, between me and the truck. And there's no other way to get to my vehicle. I have to take this path. And
Right.
I hate that. I hate it with a passion. And normally, if that happens, I will pull my firearm out and I'll keep it in my hand until I get to my vehicle.
At least it makes you feel better when you last 30 seconds, right?
It does. It does. I carry a 10 millimeter now.
Yeah.
And it's got some pretty nasty rounds in it. Brother Jeff Townsend, he gave me some buffalo boar, and they're hard casts, and they'll go through just about anything. And I told him, I want something that's going to mushroom and cause some damage. He said, this thing's going to make him leak out of both sides.
Penetrate.
And I never thought about that. I said, well, maybe you got something there. So when I go out in the woods, that's what I got in the mag is those.
When I get some of the scariest, when I'm like if I go to bed at night and we've been out and we have something happen, and it don't happen every time, but we've had some intense things that really did happen, and laying there trying to go to sleep and thinking about, like, why in the world are you doing this? There's been 2 times that I thought, you got your kid with you. He's 26. He can take care of himself, but this is stupid. But
It's hard to not want to know, though. You know,
exactly.
that desire to just um, learn as much as we can about them.
Right.
You know, if our governments would be honest and come forward with what they know about them,
Right.
and because I'll tell you right now, if they are affiliated with the Nephilim or the Raphaim or any of the giants of the old days, or the men of renown, if they're affiliated with them at all, I don't want nothing to do with them.
No.
You know, because there's a supernatural element. You know, it may be their forefathers, but it was there. And I think a lot of these beings still have that. And how do you explain some of the stuff that happens? You see, you know, something that's 2.5, 3 foot thick walk behind a tree that's 12 inches
Right.
and they don't come out on the other side. Where'd
Yeah.
they go?
And
Yeah,
you
and
know,
it's stuff like that gets really, really strange.
the more we learn and the more we learn from other people, the more confusing it is, actually.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. It just, when we think we're learning a little bit, something comes out and all of that is thrown in the garbage and we got to start over, without a doubt.
All right. Well, my wife just made it home from a meeting. Donnie, you do not know how much I appreciate this.
And I enjoyed it, Roger.
It's
Thank you
it's
greatly.
fun, and we'll do it one night when we can plan and spend more time together. I
Oh,
if
most definitely.
if you would, I'll contact you or you contact me. Let me know when you got some slow time. You know, I don't know if you work as hard in the winter or whatever, but
It's hunting season. I'll
hunting
quit or
season.
I'll fire myself one. But hunting season, we depend on it, and we
Yeah,
have several families that we help with the meat, and
yeah.
so I have to go.
Oh yeah, I
I enjoy
understand.
being there, and it's not so much harvesting the animal; it's being there when nothing happens. There's no activity, and it's just, you know, it's you surrounded by God's creation, and you know, stuff don't go wrong. You don't get pickpocketed. You don't get mugged, or you know, stuff
No.
like that doesn't happen. And
I've done some of my best thinking, Donnie, in a tree stand or just sitting in the woods on a rock, enjoying the smells. One of my favorite smells in the world, and I know people don't bring this up much, but when you smell those leaves, those dead leaves that have fallen, and that sweet smell,
oh
and
yeah,
you're in the woods, and maybe it rains a little bit, and it gives it a little different smell. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. It's almost like everybody has their uh, essential oils. If you can make me one that smells like a wet dead leaf in the
that's right.
woods, that's all I would ever need.
That's right. I'm right there with you. I love the outdoors. I can't get away from it. I just wish um, I wasn't always either nervous or scared when I'm out there. And I
Let
don't know.
me ask you this before we go.
Yeah.
Forrest brings up something that I never hadn't, like you said, I never thought about it till a few months ago when you start learning and whatever. I'm not going to ask you what you think about it, but have you heard of anybody in your area, and it could be a big area, that have said anything about Dogman?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We actually, Jeff and I seen one.
Oh wow.
It wasn't big. Uh, I'm guessing it would have been around 5 foot if it would have stood up, maybe 5.5. And it looked like a, it was black and it looked like a mix between like a coyote and a German Shepherd. But it was on two legs, it was squatted down. And what was so strange about it, uh, Jeff Townsend was with me and he was armed, heavily armed. And I don't know, he had 30 or 40 rounds in that M16 or whatever it was he had. I don't remember now, but he's got a couple of pistols on his side. I mean, he was set for war. And I walked up and I seen it and I was filming, but I was using my phone. And Jeff was behind me and I said, "What is that?" And I showed him in the screen and he said, "It's just a blur. It's a black blur." I said, "But look," and I pointed at it. I said, "Look, you know, it's got pointed ears like a bat." I
Yeah.
could see it clear looking at it, but in the screen, everything was clear, but it was blurry. And I kept trying to focus on it, and I was probably 20 feet from it at best. Jeff like circled off to the left, and he went up, and he was a lot closer to it, and he had that rifle, and he's aimed at it. And I told him, I said, Jeff, I started getting scared. We had activity all around us, and I said, I'm going to go back to the little lake right here. He said, you head down there, and I'm going to stay on him. If he moves, I'm going to splatter his brains. I mean, I don't know if he's got fear in him or not, but Jeff, he had that gun on him the whole time. Well, I got down about 50 foot from him, and then Jeff started coming back. But what's weird, he said when I started going down the hill, Jeff sat still the whole time. He wasn't moving. When I got down the hill, he said it started rising up. It started to stand up, and it was watching me. It was facing me. It started going up like that, and he said it rose up, a foot and a half, and then it dawned on it. What he thinks it dawned on him. There's another guy right here, and then it dropped real fast down, real low, and it turned its head and was looking at Jeff, and we was right up on it, and that was it. What was weird about it, there were no bad feelings. I didn't feel like I was in danger at all. I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't putting anything off that scared me. And I don't know if it's because of it being small. I don't know. It was big for a dog, but when people are reporting these things, it was not, 8 or 9 foot like people have. I've heard stories,
right.
But it was right there in front of us. And Jeff come back down there to me, and we started heading. It was getting dark on us. And then we started getting whistling all around us. And then you could hear the bipedal steps. We were being circled. And back behind us, there was an opening where the lake kind of curves. And on this side, on the hill, there's a big tree right there. And there was an opening. We were going to walk around it. Well, it was getting dark, so we're headed the opposite way. And I just had that overwhelming sensation. I was being stared at. And I'm behind Jeff. He's got the guns. I'm behind him. And I just happened to turn around and look behind me. And at the end of that little lake, and it wasn't far from us at all, there's this gigantic, towering figure. And it's between that tree and the edge of the lake. There's a brush pile or a bush of some type. And it was standing between them. And it was like doing this like it was wobbling back and forth like this. And Jeff got his binoculars out and zoomed in on it. He said, go to the truck now. He thinks it was around 11 to 12 foot. And he's seen its face. He's seen it in detail. He said that was a huge Sasquatch. And Jeff thinks that werewolf thing that we seen is somehow in cahoots with him. And maybe it went and got them to run us out. And, but we had them all around us, and that was scary. That was real scary. You could hear they were whistling back and forth to each other, and you could hear them moving through the brush. They were not trying to be quiet. And we got back to the truck. I unlocked the doors, and Jeff stayed on the outside with the rifle aimed because they were coming on the other side of the dirt road, coming straight into us. And he sat right there, and he's hollering, unlock the door. And I got the doors unlocked. He dove in, and we lit up them tires up and got out of there. But
hold on a second, Anna. No, I don't. Donnie, you haven't been on Mike's show yet, have you?
I have not.
Okay.
I will be going on with him. We just the dates that we've tried to set. Either I was working all day or Mike was.
Right.
But I will be going on there with him.
She said she remembered him having a guest on that was sitting outside. I believe that guy was up in Minnesota. And actually,
I may have been on with Mike one time before. I can't remember. I don't think I have.
It all runs together. But this one, I remember him. The one she's talking about, he was outside, and it actually was pretty cool. But the two places that I go, I have no service at all. So but what I would like to do is go somewhere that does have service and light a fire and just sit around and tell stories.
Oh yeah, Yeah,
Kind of like you do with your videos, walking in the woods and stuff.
we used to have a lot of areas that we could get out, way out in the woods, and had service. There's no background noise, no vehicles, and Hurricane Michael, when it came through, it took out the cell towers, and they did not put all of them back up. They only put a few up. We used to have 5 bars of signal here inside the house. We had 5 bars, and after the hurricane, we don't get no signal inside it.
You've got an excellent question, Iron Maiden. You're asking the right guy here. He says, "Does anyone know what smells like a male billy goat in the woods at night? I guess other than a billy goat, anything that smells similar."
Uh, some of the articles I've been doing, I've talked to one person that has encountered this thing, and they're calling it a goat man. And the smells people have associated with it is the male billy goat smell, or it'll have a sour smell. I think the one fella I talked to, I think he said it's a goat dysfunct smell, and I don't know what dysfunct means. I've heard it before, but I don't know the meaning of the word.
I'd have to look that up.
But that's what he had said. And then a couple of the articles that I've gotten, the rough draft, when our brother Don Moore, when he gets the articles, he'll clean them up, and then I'll get the clean version to share. And some of them, they talk about it has a goat smell, but it's got something else in with it. And I haven't smelled a goat in the woods yet, and I hope I don't. I don't want to run into one of them things.
Well, you were talking about earlier when that dog forgot about your buddy. It reminded me of the time when me and Peyton, my son, were going in hunting, and I was carrying one of those fold out chairs, and I was just being there with him. So on the way to his tree stand, there was a dip, and it was a dry creek bed. And as we're walking, I said, "I'm gonna just plop this chair down back up this oak tree over here, and you go up there. You got your radio, just if I hear woo." That was a good one.
That was right here.
Yeah.
That was right here close. We got a kennel back over here.
Dang. So, but just what I was going to tell you, as we were walking, I just plopped the chair down and stopped. He kept going, and that was when we had the smells come in between us. And after you get home, you think about things, and I'm thinking, you know what, that might be a good tactic for people that want to either deer hunt, squatching, whatever. Have three or four people in the group, and have one just stop and sit down. And you may have like the one that was trailing you. If something's trailing behind, you may catch a glimpse of something.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That's that I haven't thought of. They had one of the in the beginning when I first started sharing it. One of the areas that I hunt, we didn't even hunt it last year because of the activity that we've had. Excuse me, but I was trying to figure out how do you catch them on game camera.
Mm-hmm.
Because like all other animals, they can see the infrared light because the infrared is a blue light, but it's in a spectrum of blue that we can't see except certain times of the month, and it's dependent on the moon phase.
Mm-hmm.
But during that day or two phase of the moon, you can see infrared, and I've seen it maybe 5 times my whole life, but it is blue and it looks like almost like fog, but you can see the actual beam. And I knew the trail camera, they could see the light and they just avoid it. They don't go in front of it. And so what I did, I'll use my phone as an example. This being my trail camera, you set it on the tree like this and it takes pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And you got 4 loops where your strap hooks around the tree, top and bottom, and you strap it. Well, I turned the camera this way with the lens facing down, but I had it a little bit of an angle.
Mm-hmm.
And I tied string cross corner from like the top left to the bottom right, and the same on the other side. And then I tied another piece of string, and it was just regular trot line string. I tied it where the excuse me, where the two strings crossed, but I tied it a little bit further toward the top of the camera to where it would hang like this instead of flat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a tree out there in that area where we hunt. There's a lot of activity we've had out there, and the tree, it's just bent over. It's alive, but it was on my trail going to where my tree stand was. And I come out there one day, the tree's bent over and stuff started happening. And I took the stand down and we don't hunt it no more. Well, I threw my paracord over the top of that limb and I tied it to that trot line string I had on the back to where it hung, at this angle. And I turned it on video record. And what I was hoping, they would come out, they would see it hanging there, and they would touch it, and it would spin because it only had one string. But being that it was at an angle, maybe it would turn and catch them. And that night, late that night, it kicked on. I had a couple of animal triggers, but then it kicked on, and there was something was happening. And I don't know, I didn't get him on camera, but where the camera, when it would kick on, the camera's sitting like this. It's not moving, but there would be a possum or something on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, the camera starts recording, then it's lifted up and it's pointed toward the sky like this.
Wow.
And then it's kind of pointed, not quite straight, but, out, away, and it's being turned. It was the weirdest thing. And then it dropped and it's bouncing around and you can hear a couple of footsteps and then the recording stopped because it was on 15-second. And then later around 2 the following morning, it happened again. It happened 2 times. And I left it out. I think I left it 2 or 3 days. And I went back and got the camera, took the memory card out, plugged in my card reader to my phone. And when the videos come up, I cut the cord, took the camera out, and I said, nope, this ain't for me. I thought maybe I could get into that investigating, but it scared me because something had to reach up. The camera was up probably 6.5 foot. I'm 5'9", and I got it up. My arms weren't completely stretched, but it was up fairly high, just high enough I could tie that knot on the back. The other one was a guy in Georgia, and he put his trail camera on a tree, and it's facing, where his trap is. And he put all kind of sweet cakes and just junk out, hoping to catch a Sasquatch. Well, the tree that's in front of that tree, he put one of them big mirrors that you see on curves, on real sharp blind curves that hang that dome mirror up there so you can see what's coming down the other lane. He put one of those on the tree. And a Sasquatch triggered the camera. He come behind the camera, reached around and triggered it. It starts recording in the reflection in the mirror. You can see it behind the tree.
Wow.
And it was the neatest thing. And that one's on YouTube.
Well, I had a lady that interviewed me, and they're from Missouri, and they're going to do a documentary, and they were asking for ideas. And they were going to be in this area for a couple months. And I'm like, look, I'm not a researcher. But I am a hunter. And if from what we think we know about them, like Cody's been able to see the infrared and all that, if you're serious about this and you're in a hot spot, I would, because this comes from Mike's story and this idea. I would get somebody that's not scared to be in a tree stand 30 or 40 feet up in a tree at night. Do not have the camera on, but turn it on if they hear something. You know what I mean? If you get something come close to you, turn it on and catch them by surprise and have maybe 4 or 5 in an area. To me, because the trail cams are awesome because you don't have to be there. If you're doing a documentary anyway and you're taking volunteers, put people out there up where, because I think what happened with Mike, they couldn't smell him. They couldn't see him because he's full camo. He didn't have any electronics on him. And when they realized that each other had been, both of them are in a bad spot. You know, the Sasquatch has got Mike with a gun pointed at him, and he said he had this look of surprise. And I got to thinking, you know, it's all speculation. I said, well, what if it was surprised because it knows about humans, but it ain't never seen one up in a tree? You know?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna start looking up instead of, but so from a hunter's point of view, I told her, I said that if I had the money and I was doing it, I would have people out there at night in either tree stands or maybe build something 5 months ahead of time where everything's used to it, right?
Oh yeah.
But you know, I mean, I know this research is hard. Hunting is hard.
It is. Well, one of the things, I mean, this is just my opinion from what I've heard other people saying. They hang these trail camera traps, and nobody's getting nothing. I mean, every now and then you'll get a picture that's pretty convincing. But if they've got nocturnal vision, they can absolutely see that infrared light. A lot of the trail cameras, I've got 2 trail cameras right now that I'm doing reviews on for 2 different companies. And both of them, they're cheap cameras. These are Chinese made. They work fantastic, but they're cheap. If somebody steals them, you're not out much at all. They have video recording capabilities. One of them records, I think it'll record 60-minute clips straight. And I think the other one does 3 hours.
Wow.
But they also have the time lapse. Time lapse does not use the infrared light. It does not use the proximity sensors.
Right.
You put your time lapse, start it to record, say, an hour before sundown to an hour after sunup. You just set it on photo where it'll take a picture every 5 seconds until the stop time or until the battery runs out, the memory card's full, or you get there and stop it. Right. You'll have a ton of pictures to go through, but some of the areas where we hunt, you can't put a camera up. These are mature deer, very old bucks, and they will not get in front of a camera. And so we'll set a camera 30 or 40 yards from the trail, and we put it on time lapse. And you'd be amazed at some of the stuff we get, but there's no infrared light. Your night pictures are, you just about can't see them. They're dark.
And to that point, Donnie, I saw I don't know if it was a video or maybe I read it, where our cell phones, they were showing where some of them take infrared pictures every 3 to 5 seconds or whatever. Oh, and if you're out in the woods, I didn't know that. If you're out in the woods, and you're carrying your cell phone with you, even though the screen's black, you're having flashes. And if these,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Now, y'all double check and make sure I'm right, because you know, if you see something on the internet, doesn't mean it's true. But that would be something to check into, because we've been out there a bunch of times and had our phones, and you know, and when I'm going to get a Sony recorder, because we've heard some really good stuff. Depending on who you are, some people hit the truck. Some people was like, "Oh wait, that sound like a juvenile male," you know, whatever. But every time we carry these and have them recording, we don't hear anything. So when we turn them off and they leave them in the truck, was when we hear stuff. So I'm going to buy a Sony recorder. One of my friends has one. He said he has 2 actually. He says it works really well. I'm going to take it to one of our hot spots where we've heard the most sounds. When I've got a spot, I'm going to hang it and just leave it and let it record from, 2 hours after dark till morning.
Oh yeah.
And see what we can get that way. And the thing is, I'm going to do the chair trick. We're going to hang out a while, but then we're going to get up and we're going to leave, but we're going to leave something behind to see if we can get some chatter or something after we leave. So.
Oh yeah. Because they'll probably come in and check where you were at.
Yeah.
And see if there's anything you left that they could look at.
And the thing that screamed at us walked out in the field with us about 35, 40 yards away. I was sitting in the chair. We had a fire going. There was 4 of us out there. my son happened to be looking that way over my head, and I have never ever heard this sound, and people started panicking, getting to the truck or whatever. And I'll tell you somebody that made a sound exactly like it. And I don't know if you ever heard of Kumbo Baker.
I've heard the name, but I
Okay,
don't.
he's been researching like 40 years. He's from Alabama, and he made. I was on the show with Woodwalkers. We were just having like a round table, and I was asking him about juveniles, and he said, "Did it sound like this?" And he made this sound, and my skin just crawled. I'm like, "That's exactly what we heard." He said,
Wow.
it was a male juvenile." And we probably
Wow.
wore out our welcome, and he came out there and, trying to run us off or whatever, and he did. So anyway, but Donnie, I gotta go, man. It's almost 2 hours.
Yes, sir. I sure appreciate it. Thank you
Oh,
greatly
not
for
yeah.
inviting me.
Hey, you don't even know. I've had so much fun, and I definitely want to do this. I want to keep in touch too. If you have anything,
Oh yeah.
we can. Who knows? One of these days, maybe we can get together with a few people and just have a meet up, and just talk, sit around, and tell stories. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd like that for sure.
All right. Anything you want to say to because you got a lot of people in here.
That's the, that I tell people all the time, the greatest people that I've ever come across in my life outside of my direct family, my blood family, is our YouTube family. And I'll tell you, you don't realize how great of a friend that you've made until they start reaching out and checking on you, and just it's been such a blessing. And if it weren't for the Lord leading me in this direction to get on YouTube, and I'm one that does not like social media, I wouldn't have the people in my life that I have in it now, and that's
right.
All of my brothers and sisters from the channel, including you.
Right.
And I'm very blessed for that. And I just want to thank you and everyone else that's a part of this.
Well, I appreciate you. I sent you a text just out of the blue, and you didn't know me from Adam. And the reason I was reaching out to folks, and still, I'm learning. I wanted to know what happened to me and why. And I found out so much forward, made friends. And if it wasn't a weeknight and I didn't have to work in the morning, I'll talk to you all night. But I appreciate everything. I appreciate everybody that came by. If y'all would, if you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps out. And I'm gonna have Donnie's my contact. I've got people coming on, and they enjoy y'all and the people in the chat too. I mean, so I appreciate it. Donnie, go be safe, sir.
Yeah,
you
that was
scaring
kind
me.
of loud. I don't know if you heard that.
No,
That
is that a tree frog or a duck?
That's a frog.
Okay.
Two of them, one directly behind the camera and one on the ground right over here. But I don't know if y'all heard that loud crack. That was straight behind me. That was right there.
No, I was talking.
Yeah, I don't. That startled me a little. I'm listening, right. But I'm listening that way, and it happened behind me, and it kind of caught me off guard.
All right,
yeah,
let me know.
I'm gonna go in.
Let me know if anything happens. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Roger. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I appreciate you greatly. Absolutely, and thank the rest of y'all for hopping over here and hanging out with us.
Yeah, y'all too. Anybody that watches it later, thank you very much. See you later, sir.
You be good, brother. I'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.